Okay, let's start again. Now, this martyrdom and cynicism, that's the big issue today. But is it today only? No, of course not. But I'm not going to put down cynicism. No, because it's the way people react to things. It's the way, like George Carlin was talking about today. George Carlin was talking about cynicism in the way that it's a bad thing. Well, I'm not saying it's a bad thing totally. In fact, what I'm saying is with martyrdom and cynicism, you have two different ideas. The problem is that so many people put down martyrdom because of religion. Think about it. One big guy, Jesus. Well, of course Jesus is seen as a martyr. But why do we only see him as a martyr? Why don't we see other ones as martyrs? What's the problem with looking at anybody else and saying they're the alleyoop too, so there can be more than one alleyoop? Well, the thing is, we don't want more than one martyr. Because then, what happens if everybody becomes a martyr? Well, there you go. There's your problem. But, okay, let's look back for a second. Let's look back at the French Revolution. Okay. Now, that's something to look at. There were a ton of people who agreed with it. Meaning every single citizen was pretty much involved and made it very bloody. Now, what does that say about martyrdom? Well, right there, that isn't really martyrdom. It's more, well, some people would call it anarchy. But is it really anarchy in the real sense of anarchy? Not really. Because anarchy needs to have a reason to begin. And it needs to actually begin before the end result. Because a lot of times there is no other solution except destroying things. I mean, look at France recently. France recently set up things so that the only thing you can do is burn down their businesses. Burn down the big businesses, the government things, everything like that. Government institutions, everything like that. The big daddies that don't do anything for you, technically, so you can burn them because they have no reason to be around if they're not helping you. In fact, that's one of the big things that most people logically have to think about. If they're not helping me, they don't deserve to be around. So it has to be a group effort. It can't be an effort of sustainability of process and sort of elimination and throwing ourselves back into these protests. Because protests are only so much. There are certain protests that work. Obviously, on a topic of much adherence to other people that despise it, it's going to work. Now, if you have the other side where it's a process of most people coming along and doing the protest, it becomes more of a jingle, more of a Christmas sing-along. Take the budget cut protest. They don't mean much because it's kind of like a sing-song sort of Christmas carol. We're coming together as a Christmas carol idea. It's not going to change anything, buddies. You're just going to make a song out about it. And then you're going to release it and get money off of it. And where's that money going to go? Hey, you never know. Maybe it'll go back to those fat cat pockets that make you pay more. Because that's exactly what it does. It makes you look like a fruitatious bastard. It doesn't want to take a real advantage and go down and mark the buildings that you pay for. Meaning you destroy those same buildings you pay for because you're going to get your money back. One way or another. That's not anarchist. That's just saying, I'm paying for this. You're making me pay more. I'm going to take some back. I'm going to make you pay for your own mess up. And it's a destruction and starting over and seeing exactly where they stuntedly made their flaws. And then you have the idea of it. Well, is that really martyrdom, though? It's not really martyrdom if you all come together. In fact, that's the thing. Martyrdom only exists if nobody else wants to do it. There you go. Martyrdom doesn't exist if everybody else is okay with it and starts doing it too. Take, for example, the protests for the budgets. Now, let's say you take all those people, round them up, and get them all to, on their own, to figure out that maybe they won't, they're not going to change unless we basically physically make it so that they have no way of handling things except by this. So they'll do anything they please, until we break them down. And then they probably won't. So there you go. There's the identity, there's the flaw, there's the character, and then you break it down into this derived notion of everything. And then you see exactly what this derived notion of everything really does. Because martyrdom isn't really martyrdom if everybody agrees with it and everybody does in accordance to their own ideas. Not because they agree with somebody. They may actually need to talk about it with people, figure it out and see what's going on, and see the idea, and see it, filter into what they think. And sort of filter into, maybe I have some agreement with this. And it becomes that billowing heart of agony that you see out in those horror movies. It becomes that. And then you grow into it. But it goes into cynicism again. Because obviously cynicism, I'm not breaking it down as a bad thing totally. Just like sarcasm. I mean, I guess I can't break it down totally. I mean, but to be definitely honest, I do say sarcasm is a little worse because it kind of just takes the breath out of everything. You know, I like to have that breath in everything. But not to say sarcasm can't always work, because it can. It certainly can at certain times, definitely. But I do think it creates a sort of like Lombardo effect. Like, you're not really going to get anything out of it. Especially with your entire life, if you don't feel that you're getting satisfied, then obviously you're not going to get that Lombardo effect. You're going to kind of float on that board and go, well, maybe it's not working this time. So, I mean, you know, we create these things to sort of imagine ourselves better. But do we? You know, it goes with cynicism too, because cynicism is sort of that thing where you can use it in an outrageous extent, which may not be the best thing, because, you know, cynicism in great extents, in great amounts, doesn't necessarily work. Cynicism in shorter and smaller amounts, or at least to your strong point, works. Cynicism works in that way. But it doesn't break down everything. It sort of comes to the breakdown point, the end of it, something. The strong end that connects everything. The, you know, that slime in the board, that slime in the eyes, that slime everywhere. The jumping kangaroo that doesn't fall down on the ground ever, doesn't slip. Exactly. That has that pouch ready for their kids. There you go. That's what it is. Because that's where you come from. Your identity is your martyrdom, I guess you'd say. But then again, like I said, martyrdom only exists in that sort of spectrum of if anybody else doesn't want to do this. And then that's where people say, oh, well, don't be a martyr. Isn't that the big quote nowadays? Don't be a martyr. That's the big quote nowadays. I've been hearing that for centuries. Actually, in fact, since 2007, I remember that was one of the first times I heard about it. Especially don't be a martyr. The kind of attitude like, don't be a martyr, Marcello. Don't be a martyr. You know, do things for you. Well, technically, you can be a martyr and do things for you and still people won't appreciate it, because what you're doing for you is just expressing yourself. And it necessarily has to do with everything in the world, because anything in the world, don't be a martyr, technically, it can't affect anybody. Because even if it's not affecting anybody, technically, it's still affecting them because it's about something that they have a different view of. So technically, martyrdom will always affect other people. That's why they'll always say, don't be a martyr. Because they don't want you to have your stinking view about something. And then that becomes the wrong thing, because it's like, oh, well, I'm going to be cynical about it. Don't be a martyr, in that cynical tone where it's like, oh, hold it a second there. You have your right to your view. If you don't agree with me, congratulations, you know? Who cares? I don't care. That's where the big fall down and upbring comes up, because you just sort of make it so that it's, whoa, this is the identity of things. And then you sort of say, I'm going to break down things a lot easier. How? Oh, I'm going to get you on my side. How's that going to work? Well, because I can make you think on my side. Oh, really? Yeah, because I know exactly how you feel. Oh, really? You know exactly how I feel. I've just told you how I feel, and now you're going to tell me how I feel. When I've already told you something, and you just said, don't be a martyr. So now, you basically told me, by not being a martyr, I'm actually lying about my view because I threw it over here somehow. So obviously, since it has this inference that doesn't agree with yours, then somehow I'm lying about my view. Because I'm just trying to be cooler than everybody else. I don't try to be cool. That's exactly why, as John Pierre said, if I'm making people happy, I'm doing something wrong. If I'm making people angry, I'm doing something right. And that's the truth. Because that's the only way you can really expect anybody to really feel anything. To get them angry, to get them upset about something. Ooh, if they see you with that, you know, ooh, she has that view I don't like. And then they grow up to be this stalker-ish kind of thing, you know. Like Mary back then. Oh yeah, that was crazy. But see, I was so flamboyant and open, sort of like, I showed myself off like any other stranger would, beside that radio thing that I did at home back in 2003. That's how she knew me. So, I mean, you know, you kind of break down those kind of things. Maybe that was a lesson learned in my respect. But I'm not going to, you know, let down any guards or throw anybody to the pinch holes because of it. I'm here now. So obviously I'm not going to break down any other things without my knowing it. And obviously, knowing it and seeing the identity of things, seeing how people react to it, obviously with Mary back then, and then Shane, and then Shane, Mary, then Rena. I mean, you obviously had this sort of connection to come back to this martyrdom for a second there, because for 1 second I just saw the illustration of it. Maybe in a sense I was being over exuberant for sort of that martyrdom, but not the martyrdom you would think of. In fact, I actually expected everything to slow down and be completely gone. No element of fixation with anyone. In fact, probably the element of disgrace and sort of ambivalence, sort of like a blocking away. No way am I going to add this guy as a friend. Kind of like that sort of mark of slow retreat. Not even a guidance signal, meaning everything would disappear without any perseverance of knowing and knowledge and crescent moons and anything like that. Any of that would be gone. So obviously that did not work out that way. Instead, clarification came in the eyes of voids of blogs. And then obviously people have to pay attention to that. So then my identity became a fox to air hole. A fox hunt with no fox. Everything came back into this penetrable fortress of ivies and sort of this, as I always was, this double steel imperial dragon that watches you as you sleep. It became this sort of nightmare of despicable hammers that you can never stop from hammering the wall, or any other thing, any snail bite, any nail, that just the irritation of those slugs. And that's what came with it. That's what came with this stress of it. And then it became this sort of nightmare that it is now, the present condition of things. Because obviously the present condition of things became with 2007's elimination of things. With Renus, with Martha, not those, when Mary said, I feel at ease with my comfortability towards you. The closing statement of a friendship that never relied on anything. Because obviously it did not. It didn't need to. It didn't need to rely on my blogs and what I said in my blogs. But obviously her relation towards my blogs, towards me, towards the wall comments, obviously destroyed the friendship. Because obviously, me, destruction, and everything else doesn't add up to ideas that can come together with this stolen heart of repressed fists. Because obviously none of it came about to make anybody ever see the face fluctuating, the eyes going ba 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 ba, opening and closing without any other subjection to fear except my own identity. Oh yes, the terror of things, right? Because obviously Shane didn't even know the answer to why he even started talking to me at all. So, of course, the friendship meant nothing. And then, of course, the closing statement in 2007 were two different people. And the hugs and kisses didn't even begin. Because, obviously, then came Rena. And, of course, the friendship began and sprang up and sort of divulged into this flowery reticence of closed doors. Not to say that there needs to be an open door with any of this. It doesn't need to be open because now it's better. So let's get to the beginning of frankness, because obviously there's something closing right now. And obviously it's not me. It may be me, but it's not my eyes anymore. It's more my frankness of speech, my elimination and deletion of projects, and sort of that whole process of throwing myself up in the sky with ambivalence and sort of attitude, that beehive. That beehive, yeah, that beehive. That's the identity. Your beehive. Do all of you have beehives out there? I hope so. All of you better have beehives. Your head is your beehive. You have your honey processing. You have your buzzing. You have your combs everywhere. You have your head comb. Instead of honeycomb, head comb. And you know exactly what to do with that head comb. You make it clear. You make it boundless. You make every other pressure in life destroyed. Because you will not take no for an answer. I can't either. I can't take no for an answer. And I'm going to make damn sure that you won't either. Because I can see exactly where you're coming from. Your identity, your process, your elimination, the arrangement of ideas. Arrangement number 5, arrangement number 4, arrangement number 3. We're at arrangement number 4 probably. At my idea, we could be in any arrangement and it won't matter because I'm going to throw every pattern. But obviously this martyrdom, this cynicism. These ideas sort of breaking bounds with nobody. Bouncing balls. Yeah, bouncing balls, alright. Yeah, we could try. We could try, alright. We'll never get there. We'll never get to that end because we won't see anybody at that end. So of course we don't care about that end. Think about it. When was the last time you actually cared about something ending when you didn't see it? Oh, yes, of course you didn't. Because you didn't see that ending. You're an idiot. Yeah. That's why I began at this part. Because I saw it, the martyrdom, the idea of this martyrdom, because that's what makes it so untouchable. Nobody else wants to do it. So of course martyrdom, don't be a martyr, That's why it's said like that, with such hesitation. Because no one else wants to feel that way. Or if they do, they stop themselves by telling you to not be a martyr. And that's where the closing, clamping fist of everything falls back into your lap. Yeah, you can try, alright. You can't even eliminate your own ideas. But you definitely can by telling other people not to. Boom, the wrecking ball. Yeah, you're the wrecking ball now, though. See, that's the one thing you always tried to penetrate and never be. But then you all became that. You all became that wrecking ball. Yeah, you all became that wrecking ball. But you can't destroy this double steel imperial dragon that watches you as you nap. And sleep and everything else. All in betweens. No other person can stop this double steel imperial dragon that watches you as you sleep. Because you can never see the identity of so many things. Because you can't bring it up into your mind and bring up that maybe the philosophy isn't the process of everything, but maybe the philosophy is the actual guidance of experience that sort of comes with everything. Because we can now see exactly where we're coming from. We don't create our faceless identities through the process of what we think about others. We create it by what we know about others, directly, distinctly, looking at it, with instinct. Because our instincts create something that's not emotional, no attachment with emotion, because those are the blocks that I had in my past that sort of destroyed the friendships that I wanted to last, and be the instinct, and be the responsibility of what I should have taken in. Instead, I took the instinct to break my own past. And it took some time to break that past, so obviously laying blocks down that are filled with ice can only be broken for a time after your past belongs to your present no more. And that's exactly what happened. The sort of process and elimination of flagrant lips and ideas that come with the fingertips of spiders. And you can only break them with the spider web. So then we begin with the process and this elimination process that sort of comes with this protection. This martyrdom that we don't want anymore. Because we don't know exactly if our instinct is the right responsibility. And that goes with tradition. And that goes with tradition and balance. Because we all want to have balance. But we don't want our own balance. See, we want the balance of other people that we admire in life. We don't want to create our own balance. We don't want to use our own ideas. We want to use our family's ideas. We want to vote for the same people that our family votes for. Well, my parents voted this way, so of course I'm going to as well. And then the breaking halt stops. Oh, we can't make it any other way anymore. We have to use the same ones that we've seen. We can't create our own. We can't use our own balance and our own tradition, even though we grew up in a different society with computers and logical ideas that sort of break down this framework that we have to keep using forever. Because somehow the process of things change without our responsibilities taking us with it. So now we changed our responsibilities to sort of fall back on our own ideas that aren't our own anymore. Because obviously we cannot create our own ideas through this process and elimination and everything else that sort of should have belonged to us from the beginning. I sure as hell will always say my balance came from me. It didn't come from my mom. It didn't come from Amina. It didn't come from Jean-Pierre. It didn't come from dogs or cats or any other thing that's living around me. It came from me. I may have learned experiential things from everything around me, but I sure as hell didn't take it in as my own. I didn't take in the votes of other people as my own. I feel that if I feel represented, I'll vote. If not, no way. So then the jumping gate can never be filled until we begin to see the ills of what creates our thrills. I've created my thrill through every guidance and every fluorescent light. You can break all you want. You could break dance even if you wanted. Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I know you like that sort of stuff, but I don't. I can see exactly through this martyrdom of ideas. Yeah, you don't like martyrdom, do you? This is exactly the problem. That's why this never worked out. This didn't work out because of my past. It's like my brother said. My brother said it best about my old friendships. If these people actually wanted to be your friend, they would stick at you directly, all of them. Or at least they would stick at you directly one at a time and come up to you and say, "Oh, Marcello, I want to talk to you now. I want to find out why you think like this, Marcello." And then there'll be this breakdown period of so many ideas and fluorescent lights and chases and guidance and every single thing jumping at you like a flock of birds. They don't need to chase you, though. Directly, their instinct would tell them to come follow you, not anything else. There wouldn't be any chase. There would be an instinct. I'm going to find out exactly why Marcello felt this way. Instead, the breakdown comes without any persistent blows, and in fact, that's why I knew better. Because obviously, I should have known better earlier and apologized definitely right away and just said, "I have to go, I can't be your friend because I know exactly how you're feeling, and I can't become a person's friend when I'm thinking about my past so much." And that's the problem. You can't start things when you have your own identity, not crisis, but identity mark. My mark came. And it was sticking with me for a while, until that ice block was broken through my own hand in Hamlet, and every single thing that's a hammer. And obviously it took some time. It didn't work in 2007 to break down. So instead, this martyrdom idea becomes a problem. It wouldn't have been. But see, a martyrdom only works if those people feel good from that martyrdom. Not necessarily that them... Well, that's the thing about martyrs. That's the thing about martyrdom in general. That's why people say don't be a martyr. Because it can hurt somebody. And obviously the person who gets hurt doesn't like that. But they don't necessarily have to feel hurt, rather than just have an experience and learn from it. But people don't find it that easy to learn from something when somebody else has to make a decision for their own life. Obviously, I made a decision through my own life without knowing that technically I didn't understand what was happening in my own life at the moment. Instead, I only knew what was happening in my own life because of my past. So obviously, I based everything off that. And I think that's a fair thing. I obviously did not understand things through the process of exact motion sensing. So I begin from nothing, and I find something that may be tolerable, maybe not. So I'm going to apologize right now for, not corruption. No, because I was being a martyr with technically with only ambivalence to my past. With so much ambivalence to what's happening in the present. That's what was the problem. It wasn't so much me being a martyr towards, in general. It was more having this ambivalence to what was happening directly in front of me. Not having the instinct. More having my instinct to my past based on my present. So in fact, it was like a double martyr. So it was like this martyrdom for my past, but happening in the present with people that it shouldn't have happened with. So in fact, it was like this sort of martyrdom that sort of conglomerates like clay, and it just sort of like drags itself across a screen, a TV screen, for example. You just kind of had that, something moving slowly. Not like Gumby. I'm talking very slow, like, you wouldn't see it. That's how slow it would go. You wouldn't know exactly what it is. You would go, what? I thought, I could recognize Gumby. I can't recognize that. But it's going slower than Gumby. I don't even know what it is. So that's what martyrdom is in a sense. Martyrdom has become that sort of pigeonhole effect where it's like, oh, martyrdom can't fix anything. Well, it can't fix anything if somebody concentrates on their past, definitely. But I think at this point it can create a lot of things that are good. But see, the thing is, you got to establish that your conditions are not the conditions of a martyr. So if you disagree with a martyr, obviously martyrdom doesn't work. But what if there's something you can agree with everybody? And not due to jokes, no comedian-esque things. What if there's something that you can possibly agree with, maybe not in action right away, but sort of a philosophy of, you can understand it completely, and you could say, you know what, that makes sense. There's something of a breakdown there. There's something of a 4.0 that's there. And that goes back to the cynicism in a sense, because everyone wants to default to cynicism. Not to say defaulting to cynicism shouldn't be done ever. In fact, it should be done, but it has to be done without taking in what your cynicism is personally. That's the thing. When you're cynical, even if somebody else listens to someone being cynical, they shouldn't take it in as a process of life. Because cynicism only works at the instinct and only works at the process and the elimination and the beginning and the throwing up of ideas. You can't begin a conversation with, I believe in cynicism, or I believe in sarcasm, and that's the only identity that will fix things. See, that's where it does become a problem, though. And it can. Because if you overdo things with cynicism, and people start believing it so much, you'll be stuck in a hump forever. And that's all you'll be. Just a hump. That's where I definitely have problems with it, because I feel that that's where mostly it's going. I mean, just look at the people who are in charge. Penn and Teller, Bill Maher, Jon Stewart, Colbert. They're the big dogs. That's the ones I call it. Well, I call Penn. He should be a picture next to douchebag in the dictionary. He's exactly the image of it. And Teller should be, he is a rejected Wizard of Oz munchkin. That's what he is to me. So, I mean, definitely these are people who, obviously get a kick out of sticking in their humps. And there you go. You got your hump of cynicism forever. See, but you could get lost in that too. You can't get so much lost in martyrdom. You can get lost in martyrdom if you did it the same way in the process and the elimination and the beginning and the ideas, if you started from the point of no return. But if you started from the point of ideas springing from every single process, like an antelope with legs, or like like those stringy things that bounce up and down, then you have something beginning. So martyrdom doesn't necessarily work into a defeatist thing. Martyrdom can be completely arousal to everyone, but it has to work with that. It can't be the identity of something. It has to be the process and the movement of something. That's when martyrdom works, because martyrdom then becomes something as easy as a straight line. It's not even turned. It's not even perpendicular to another line. It's exactly a straight line. Everything is a level view, because you've created something that is not destiny. It's not destiny. It's not what should be done. It's what is. It's just what is. And you see it as that. You don't see it as anything unjust, tainted. You don't see it as something imperfect or perfect. You just see it as something that is. As with life, as with death. You just see it as something that is. That's what martyrdom hasn't become yet. But it will, hopefully. But this cynical line, it draws some bad conclusions as well. And it can, but it can be very positive too, if worked correctly. As a strong, terse thing, we must begin from the beginning. And we must drive into every overdrive that sort of begins with the spinning fan of a hard drive. Woo, 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 woo. The light flashing everywhere. The lights are flashing. And we'll begin soon. We'll all begin soon. I mean, I find it pretty simple. We can't ever let go of martyrdom. We can't ever let go of cynicism. We use them together to sort of break the bounds of every electric thing that we don't want to touch with water. Because it'll be that electric punch, but it won't look like that electric punch after that. It'll look like something we could use. That's where I start. That's where I stop. And that's where we begin with everything. And that's all. We're going to begin with everything again. And I care about you guys being yourself. I don't need any other guidance now. We definitely know how to open doors on our own. That's where it's starting from. Opening doors alone.